I was really struck by the sense of community, how many people love the place, how many people were involved in it in all kinds of different ways. And I've been able to help out, and they've given me many opportunities down here to direct and to act for them. So it's been, I think it's one of the cornerstones of Youngstown.
Now, I think that the resiliency, the fact that this place, I mean, my God, it's flooded. The only thing we're missing is a tornado and a hurricane at this point. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, no. I don't mean that. I think the resiliency, I mean, there is no stopping it. It may pause for a minute, but like, it's gonna come back. I think that's its special thing. There's clearly a love and a fabric of people here that will always make sure that it's gonna be okay. I think that's why the Playhouse is special.
And that actually was...
Quote, that we arrived at 50 years together is due as much to luck as to love, and a talent for knowing when we stumble, where to fall, and how to get up again. Unquote. Ruby Dee. Those words also describe the Playhouse's journey over the first 50 years. It wasn't perfect, but they arrived at their first big milestone anniversary. The second half of season 50 started off with the bang audiences anticipated. Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman would lead an incredible 50th season at Playhouse Lane. Starring John Griffith as Willie Loman and directed by Bentley Lenhoff, Salesman still holds special status at the Playhouse. Salesman would be followed by another audience pleaser, Last of the Red Hot Lovers, and season 50 was setting records. But the love referred to by Ruby Dee would get a test during season 50. During a violent thunderstorm in the spring of 1974, the stage roof would be damaged, flooding the stage below during the wee hours of Easter Sunday. With a matinee of the campy musical Dames at Sea scheduled for that day, undaunted cast and crew banded together to mop up the stage and orchestra pit so that the show could go on.
Dames at Sea. Now that was a funny one because I had no idea that the role that I was playing, Ruby, would get a lot of laughs. Mm-hmm. And nobody warned me. Leo Muller, who directed that, opening night I was flabbergasted because all I was doing was what he asked me to do. And we just got laugh after laugh after laugh. And I think I was probably well cast because I was pretty naive and pretty the epitome of Ruby. And that was really fun.
The Playhouse also had other allies in their continuing journey, their loyal advertisers. Many local Youngstown businesses were regular sponsors of each and every production, with McKelvey's department store heading the list. Their themed ads graced the back cover of playbills for years, along with Strauss's department store on the inside front cover. Many others in the area were also prominently represented. Record-setting season ticket drives also added to the coffers. Each drive seemed dramatically more successful than previous ones. Local audiences were clamoring for tickets. The Women's Guild, however, had their own unique approach to raise some funds, a celebrity cookbook. Gathering recipes from Playhouse actors and personnel was the first step, but to include recipes from Broadway, Hollywood, and television celebrities placed the cookbook into a whole new realm. Now Youngstown housewives could serve dishes from the likes of Arnold Palmer, Mrs. Bob Hope, Phyllis Diller, Vincent Price, and many more. The cookbook was a huge success. Another legendary Playhouse show would hit the boards in season 51, the hit musical Gypsy. Gerry Bloomberg would reprise her Mama Rose role from years earlier, with support from Laura Lee Thomas, Arlene Smith Russo, and Kim Mills. The show ran a solid 5 weekends and still turned people away due to sellouts. By the summer of 1975, Bentley Linhoff had been leading the Playhouse for 10 years. His tenure was now the longest of anyone who had preceded him in his position.
Well, Bentley was quite a character, as we all know. But he came from a theater background. I think his father had some type of, I don't know whether it was a summer stock theater up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, something along those lines. So he came with a wealth of experience, and he seemed to have the pulse of the area in making choices about what his audience wanted to see. And he also was able to make a lot of contacts with some of the movers and shakers in the town, especially during the time when the mills were running, and there were a lot of, there were just a lot of people around with money at that point, and he seemed to be able to bring it all together and make it work.
He was a gruff man. I think he ran the Playhouse very well. I think there were some problems after he left, and then he came back and really kind of revitalized it. And I was on the team of Let's Get Bentley back to revitalize. I supported that wholeheartedly. And then he mellowed. I think he did. He really did. And I don't know, I miss him.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing was the fact that he built on quality. The shows were quality, and that's an interesting thing. When he first came here, his contract said he could not direct a show. And for some reason, somebody became ill. In the first year that we were here, he directed a show, and of course it was a wonderful job. And so the next year, the contract said he had to direct 2 shows. And it got so there were wanting him to direct so many shows because the quality of his direction was really outstanding, and he paid so much attention to detail that he got directing too much, and it was overwhelming, and so he cut back on the direction. But the first 10 years, he was so successful because of the fundraising. He was unique in his handling of money, and he knew how to get money, and he knew what to do with it, and I think that was why the first 10 years were successful, because the Playhouse continued to grow.
Heading into season 52, R11's Veronica's Room would come to hold special significance down through the years. This show would mark the first main stage appearance for then unknown actor Edward O'Neill. Still a student at Youngstown State University, O'Neill would be showing up a lot more on the Playhouse stage. Coinciding with the bicentennial of the United States, the Playhouse would present their blockbuster hit for season 52, 1776. Directed by Robert Vargo, the show relates the story of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And with a mostly male cast, it showcased the work of some of the finest Playhouse actors. But 1776 would be followed in the spring with an equally successful production of Godspell. The season would finish off on a typically strong note and would be highlighted by the presentation of an honorary author award to former director Arthur Sercombe. Along with ground being broken during the summer for a Playhouse edition, columnist Esther Hamilton lauded praise on Playhouse set designer Paul Kimple. Many of his sets elicited applause when the curtain went up on Act 1. Hamilton recalled in her article,
"Attending Playhouse shows has become a must among knowledgeable people in this area. They come by car, bus, and whatever way they can to get there and build up memories for tomorrow."
My husband loved it here. He felt it was really a gem and a jewel for the valley. And I, of course, believed that totally, too. I thought it was a fantastic place.
At this time, the Youngstown area was buzzing with entertainment, with national celebrities making appearances at many local venues. John Kenley and his Kenley Players, however, were outdoing everybody with guest appearances by Henry Winkler, Jane Powell, Sonny Bono, Ed Ames, Vincent Price, and Ann Miller. The 53rd season would introduce Ron Prather to the Youngstown Playhouse. Prather's first appearance was in the farce Move Over, Mrs. Markham, but Prather would go on to numerous roles on the Playhouse stage, as well as serving as assistant technical director. By this time, the new addition at the rear of the Playhouse had been completed, and to help celebrate the occasion was the installation of the lobby bar, the intermission bar. Designed by Sis Soller, the bar featured playbill covers from many of the most successful shows at the Playhouse. The Country Girl would offer audiences the chance to see the dynamic acting duo of John and Rennie Griffith in the powerful leading roles, and would also feature Joe Scarvell. The remainder of the season would end on a high note with a production of Private Lives featuring Ed O'Neill in another memorable Playhouse role.
Again, it was a specific day and time that defined who we are as a community. And people still talk about Black Monday, even some who weren't even born at that point. And but for those who were around and knew what was going on, it really marked a sea change for our community. And it started on September 19th, 1977, when the Youngstown Steel Company announced that they were closing almost all basic operations at the Camel Works. That would be making the basic steel, the semi-formed parts of it. 5,000 people were out of work starting the end of that week. And they gradually phased out other elements of the plant. And then in 1979, they announced closing out basic operations and really all of the Briar Hill Works on Youngstown's northeast side. And so, again, 1,500 or so jobs lost directly in these plants, but then you had all the indirect damage coming from local contractors, the railroads, the trucking companies that move products and raw materials in and out of the Mahoning Valley. So you had that effect of thousands of more jobs that were lost in this period. And I would say even to a greater extent than the Great Depression, the economic upheaval was tremendous and painful, and families to this day still have not recovered what they had at that point versus what they have now.
The 54th season started strong, with Murder Among Friends featuring Ed O'Neill and an open house to enlist new members into the Playhouse family. One Playhouse actress, however, was opening the door to another concern: the lack of opportunities for black actors at the Playhouse. Gloria Brown praised the Playhouse for all that they had accomplished, but pointed out that few black plays were presented, making it difficult for black actors to get involved. The beginning of 1978 would bring more bad news to the Youngstown area. Packard Music Hall was severing ties with longtime summer producer John Kenley. Citing the need to open the theater for summer leases, John Kenley's long stay in the Youngstown area would end. Kenley, however, claimed that it was Packard's unwillingness to perform needed renovations which caused the split. Restaurants and hotels claimed that 40% of their summer business was from Kenley shows. The cold wind and the warm was running at the Playhouse, and the warmth continued with the opening of the long-anticipated Moyer Community Room, named for Sidney and Helen Moyer. As the season wound up, the Playhouse would set a new record for ticket sales, with 15,000 people attending The Sound of Music. And the successes kept rolling, with productions of The Curious Savage with Phoebe Alexander and award-winning productions of Fiddler on the Roof and Brigadoon that were setting the stage for the Playhouse to rise to the top of the list among successful community theaters in the country. The Playhouse was now spending more money on costumes than they used to spend on an entire season of shows. It would be about this time that Playhouse actor John Abbey would create his signature role of Sheridan Whiteside in the comedy The Man Who Came to Dinner. Meanwhile, the Civic Children's Theater was equaling the successes of the Playhouse main stage, with productions of Step on a Crack, Beauty and the Beast, and Rapunzel and the Witch, along with successful classes for young actors who were clamoring for involvement in the youth program. One thing that actors and audience each had in common when they arrived at the Playhouse is the familiar face that greeted them each day, Henry Jones. Jones started his career at the Arlington Street Theater and stayed well into the Playhouse Lane days. He was a doorman, watchman, maintenance man, and all-around friend to each and every person that walked through the Playhouse doors. A professional company would be established at the Playhouse by Bentley Linhoff, PM and the AM, providing Playhouse main stage shows for school audiences, with shows like The Glass Menagerie and the effect of gamma rays on Man in the Moon marigolds. It gave student audiences a glimpse of a wider expanse of theater available to them. 1980 would see one of the biggest successes ever at the Playhouse, Hello, Dolly, starring a then relatively unknown Maureen Collins. As Vindicator critic Margaret Neary said, quote, "The show belongs to Maureen, and she makes every moment count," unquote. But as often happens in Playhouse history, this success was countered with sad news. The passing of 3 Playhouse giants in close succession. Arthur Sercombe, former director, Fred Childress, critic and Playhouse supporter, and Paul Herman, actor, were all vital parts of the Playhouse family. Their passing was felt by everyone associated with the theater. Season 58 would see 2 landmark productions, On Golden Pond with Helen Moyer and John Abbey, and Cabaret starring David Gentry. That season would go down as one of the most successful Playhouse seasons ever. But with local unemployment rolls rising to 62,000, the Playhouse began to see its own sour times hit. Bad reviews were now becoming more frequent at the theater. The Playhouse seemed to be entering a different phase.